Welcome to Wisdom with Dad. My name is Sean. Each time we get together, I talk about a different subject, something that I think would either make your life safer or maybe make your life a little better. And each week when we talk about these subjects, it's just 5 simple points. Some of them are more important than others, so we'll try to emphasize those. But each week, we try to get 5 points that can make things just a little bit better in your life. All right, let's get started with it. Today, we're going to be talking about when you're walking down the street. If you're just walking from one place to the other, we talked about in another episode what you do when you walk down the street. It sounds kind of silly, kind of simple, but there are some better practices, and you can look at that episode. But in this episode, we're going to talk about a little more serious subject. You may have heard about stranger danger. Now, that is if somebody comes up to you, drives up to you, or approaches you. Well, what do you do? Well, there are 5 steps that we're going to cover. In the first one, well, this one is an important one that you're really going to need to talk to somebody who's responsible for you. Now, if you have a father or a mother, you can talk to them, or a grandparent or a foster parent. You can talk to anybody about it, but talk to somebody who's responsible for you, because this is point number 1. Have a code word. Maybe you've seen a movie where they had a secret password, or maybe you have a password for getting onto your, maybe your Facebook page or checking your email. Anything like that has a password. A code word is tip number 1. And the reason is this: if somebody approaches you and tries to say something like, my mom wanted, or your mom wanted you to go home with me, and she asked me to pick you up, or your grandmother said this, or whatever, whoever's responsible for you, if they try to tell you that, you can ask them, what's the code word? Now, that sounds great. That's a good way to make sure to find out if they're lying or not. But point number 1 is this: you need to talk to whoever is responsible for you and establish a code word. Think of anything, but think of something that only the 2 of you know. And the next time your foster parent or grandparent or uncle or aunt, whoever's responsible for you, says, hey, I need you to pick up my son or my daughter, and that'd be you, make sure that they use that code word. And if the person doesn't know the code word, then they can either call, or they're a bad person and they're trying to hurt you. So a code word is point number 1. Very important. Talk to whoever's responsible for you. Get that done today. Point number 2. Point number 2 is also very important. You are ultimately responsible for yourself. And if you're not comfortable with somebody, if you don't feel like you should talk to somebody, don't. You don't have to talk to a stranger. If they approach you and you're not comfortable, run. You don't have to talk to them. Now, you might want to find out what it is. If there is a legitimate situation where somebody has asked, whoever's responsible for you has asked, hey, I need to pick you up, so-and-so had to go to the hospital, you might want to find out, but you don't have to talk to them. And then once you find out what they're up to, you can run. You can take off, you can go, no problem whatsoever. So number 2, you are not obligated to talk to somebody. They may come up. Sometimes strangers will say things like, hey, I lost my puppy, can you help? You don't have to talk to them. It's just you. All right, that's number 2. Number 3. Now, the first 2 points were out on the street, walking down the street, somebody approaching you. Point number 3 is if you're at home. If you're at home, you don't have to answer the door. And again, this is going back to talking to your parents, your foster parents, whoever's responsible for you. Talk to them and say, hey, I'm going to be home. What do I do if there's a knock on the door? And then you have that discussion. They could say, oh, you know what? I've got a package coming from FedEx or UPS or the mail. So that may be them. A lot of times they'll leave that package on the ground, or they'll put a little note on the door. So you still don't have to do anything. But just know you need to have a plan for how you're going to deal with things when you're at home. So that's point number 3. If you're home alone, you don't have to answer the door. You don't have to answer the phone. Do what you think is best based on what the folks that are responsible for you have decided. All right, so let's say the number 4 is that there's a phone call and your parents said, yeah, you can answer it. We might be calling you, but let's say it's not them on the phone. And it's somebody that's asking strange questions like, hey, I need to deliver something today, or they have some kind of a reason why they're going to go to your house. Well, if you're young, they can tell that by your voice. And bad people are good at this, and they can find out a lot of information from you if you're not careful. So don't give out any information. Don't let them know anything. And if you want, do the easiest thing in the world. Hang up. Call your folks, call your foster parents, call whoever's responsible for you and say, hey, what do I do? Somebody from something said that they wanted to drop something off. If your parents say, oh yeah, that's right, I've got that coming over, his name is so-and-so, he looks like this, he's gonna be there, I'll call him and tell him to bring it back. That's fine, but if they don't know, you don't need to do anything with them, so don't worry about it. And number 5, this one's important. If ever you're not sure, find out. Always ask questions. If you're uncomfortable with a situation, let's say you're at home and somebody comes up to the door and you don't answer it, and then you see maybe somebody going into the backyard, you can call whoever's responsible for you. Or if you think somebody's trying to get into your house, call the police, but talk to your parents, talk to your foster parents, talk to whoever's responsible for you about that. That's something that you need to have with them. So 5 points, we're gonna go through them again. It's pretty simple. Obviously, you're gonna be making sure that you're safe about what you're doing out there. You're also gonna talk to your parents when you're making these decisions. And again, don't feel obligated to talk to anybody. This is totally up to you. All right, so 5 tips on staying safe. The next time we get together, we're gonna be talking about internet safety. Not in person, it's that thing that happens online, and that one is just as important. We're gonna talk about that. If you want, like us on Facebook, and again, thanks for watching Wisdom with Dad.